What's up, everybody? Nick Piles, publisher of 1851franchise.com, here with another episode of Meet the Zor. We are talking MaidThis. Coming up next. All right, Neel, actually, we're starting with you. Then we'll talk about the brand. But what is your franchise story? And I know it's going to be a good one. How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
So I started my business in 2013, and I was just in the corporate grind, in a cubicle working a 9 to 5, wanted to escape, typing in, how do I leave the 9 to 5? And I'd see all these photos online of someone traveling with their laptop on the beach. And I thought, I want that to be me. So I tried a bunch of different things, finally figured out one thing which worked, which was cleaning, started to pivot to the Airbnb side and grew that until around like 2018, 2019. And that was just in my location, Los Angeles. At that point, I'd quit my job, was traveling full time. So I traveled for about 5 years straight while building the business and decided I wanted to expand. And probably similar story to a lot of other people, Nick, where I wasn't sure how to expand. Starbucks model, where you do it yourself, McDonald's model, like sell just the information. I had no idea. Finally, someone's like, hey, why don't you think about franchising? And I remember thinking back then, franchising, that sounds like my parents did. That sounds like old school. Why would I do that? I'm a new age kid. But I looked into it more, realized what an amazing model it is to package everything. And so we ended up launching franchising early 2020. So right in time for COVID for a vacation rental cleaning franchise, but worked. And that first year had one franchisee, and now we're currently at 27 locations.
Oh, that's great. So go back to, you're going through the process of, I assume, working with a franchise consultant to help you franchise the business.
Correct.
Take me through where's the dream at? Like when you start hearing a consultant talk about franchise, they're like, you're going to have 1 billion locations in the next 15 months. Where's your head at? And what was the reality of actually franchising your business?
Overwhelmed, whereas where my head was at, you're coming from having your own business and all of a sudden you hear these, it's high ticket sales. That's what you're doing, right? It's a completely different business model. So I remember my thought was just thinking, how am I going to do this? I don't even know how to find people. I don't know, when they get onboarded, I don't know what to teach them about, because this is my first time doing it. I was never in the franchise world, Nick. I never had a franchise. I was never a franchisee. I was never in the franchisor side. It was just completely foreign to me. So hearing all these things I quote unquote had to do, you have a lot of doubts. You wonder, should I be doing this? Is this the best way forward? And to be honest, it was kind of like a 51%, 49%. Should I do it or should I not do it? And I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to do it. Let's just see how this goes. So it's very much of a lot of earlier entrepreneur stories where you kind of go in blind. But in many ways, that's kind of the best, right? You go in blind, you don't know how hard it's going to be. So you're just like, all right, let me just do this. And then you figure it out as you go.
Was franchisee acquisition a challenge? Has it been a challenge? And what has that been like?
I think at the beginning, definitely. And now in hindsight, I could kind of see okay, this is the way any business goes, right? At the beginning, it's really freaking hard to get leads, and leads for us would mean franchise inquiries. And later on, it's less about that. But at the beginning, of course, you wonder, how am I going to convince someone to buy into my model when I have no other proof besides myself? So it was definitely a lot of wondering how this is going to work. And I think a lot of people in the franchise industry, especially the fast scaling ones, will say, go work with a broker group, go work at the FSO if they take you. Increase your franchise fee payment to them to make sure you get in. And there's all these standard things that happen in the franchise world. We've not sold any through a broker at this point. That's just, it's not like it was strategic. I think at the beginning I looked into the brokers, and then finally someone was like, dude, why don't you just get on social media and Twitter and start posting? And I hate social media, but I thought, I got to do this. I got to figure out how to get leads coming in. So I started building a personal brand and posting more. And 100% of our franchisees have come through a combination of my social media presence, being on podcasts, or seeing us in some online PR publication. It took a while to build up. It's not it's the same thing if you think about paid ads versus organic in your own marketing. Paid ads, you could have instant gratification. Leads come in, they don't really know who you are, but they'll talk to you. But once you actually have a personal brand, it takes a while to build up, but people come in way warmer, right? They're like, hey, I've read about you. I heard your podcast. I've been following you, and they come in more excited. And I found that it was a lot easier's not the right word, but like it was a warmer conversation to have with people as opposed to relying on brokers and trying to convince them and doing the sales process. So that was the route we took, and it's worked so far.
I love your answer for a million reasons. It speaks to me in a large way, and I want to break down some of those things. One is with the franchise broker, that advice. What I don't like about that advice, and I understand why that advice exists, but that advice of increase what you pay the broker, which basically is increasing your franchise fee, which is decreasing the odds of getting someone who's going to have grit and hustle, which decreases the odds of them actually succeeding as a franchisee. And so you look at these levers. I think of it like almost like a soundboard. And so the soundboard starts moving, and yes, we can acquire franchisees or the paid side, but they don't have anything to connect with. So now like we have to really sell them on a franchise versus develop them as a business operator. And so now this fee is going up. We're not disclosing to the franchise buyer world, hey, that fee went up. It's actually your money that you're paying the broker. And the broker saying, well, technically I coach you for free. You don't have to pay me anything. The franchisor pays me. But it's like, okay, let's just be honest. Let's call it is what it is. Because now the other issue that I have with it is then our relationship, franchisee-franchisor, starts off on a white lie versus transparency and honesty. And we're about to try to help you figure out a pathway to growing. The other thing, and one, I love that you have a picture of you on your website, but I think there's something bigger there. Like even in the why you, why now, I've told this story many times. Sony had this guy, Nobutashi. He created the Walkman digital camera and camcorder for Sony. Apple had Steve Jobs. Nobody knows who Nobutashi is. They both died in 2011. One left the world forgotten, one left the world remarkable. And so I use that and I say, like, everything you just said clicks with me because I'm going to buy from you. I also say the line, if I were buying a franchise, I'm betting on the jockey, not on the horse. I don't care what the business is. Tell me who the leadership is because I'm betting on them. They've built the infrastructure to help me build financial wealth. And that's why I'm getting into franchising. So everything you're saying connects with me. And imagine that's part of whether it's, you know it or not, like it's the financial freedom secret formula. No, I don't think that's the secret formula is you're out there saying your viewpoints, establishing culture, showing vision, and to a buyer that probably never said, I want to be in the cleaning industry. Same with you. They're like, but I want to bet on what this guy is doing. And that's the secret formula that I'm interested in. Any comments on that?
Nailed it. Oh, just absolutely nailed it. I remember the moment it clicked for me that it's more about the personal brand and people buy from people. Have you heard or do you know of Bedros Keuilian who runs Fit Body Bootcamp?
Yeah.
Cool. Huge personal brand. I don't know it, but I follow him online. And I already had made this franchise at the time. It was probably earlier on in it. And I was always absorbing his content. And at the bottom of his content, he always says, oh, if you're interested in Fit Body Bootcamp, fill out this form over here. And I loved his content. So anyways, I filled out the form. I ended up scheduling like a concept call. And in my mind, at some point, I was like, wait, like what? I'm a franchisor in a cleaning company. I don't even go to the gym. Why am I contacting them to open up a Fit Body Bootcamp location? It makes no sense. But I just liked his brand so much and I vibed with what he was saying. And that's the reason I inquired. And at that point, it clicked like, oh, people buy from people they like. It doesn't matter what the brand is. That's how you get people to want to inquire. And I completely agree with you in terms of like the franchise world. I think almost everyone in the franchise world and industry is very, very helpful. However, when you're new in the franchise world, a lot of people want to sell you. Like it's just how it is, right? And I've started to become wary of people saying, oh, just raise your fees. Oh, this is how it's done. Oh, just give us a % of your royalty. That's just how it is. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that around. There's a lot of people who promise everything. Even marketing agencies will say, well, it's going to take 100 to 150 leads for you to close one franchise sale. So why don't you just increase the number of leads you have? That's going to cost at least 15 or 20 grand. And you realize like, okay, these incentives don't really line up anymore, right? Like who's incentivized by me believing that? The people selling the service. So some of those things where you have to kind of make your own decisions, which is really hard to do if you don't know what you're doing in the industry. So I think it does take just a little bit of time to navigate it. At least it did for me.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things. If I'm a franchisor listening to this, I mean, you are right. There are lots of snakes in this industry that have things to sell to you. And there's a reason why so many companies sell leads. It's because that's the perception of what you need to get a deal. No, you need a really good lead. Like with our company, we'll bring on, call it 20 new clients a year. If I had to weave through 2,000 different human beings to get the 20, I wouldn't be able to operate our business. I want 20 and maybe 25. Like, let's make sure it's warm, because if we're selling, then the other thing you look at when you've been sold into something, you flash forward a year down the line, what's the mentality? And because now when things get challenging, what happens? And so in a supplier world, that's why there's such high turnover on the franchisor side. On the franchisee side, if you've been sold into a franchise, that's where you start falling into the 33% of the bad franchisees, because you're frustrated and you look at maybe what I could potentially make, but not the work that it would take to go in here. What I really do hate about higher fees, though, and I'm sure eventually there's a workaround to this. I agree you need some skin in the game to get into a franchise. That I don't disagree with. But if you think about your business story, if I look at my business story, the capital wasn't the magic piece. It was the grit and hustle and the dedication. And when you have fees that are too high, it eliminates that component from the franchisee, because or eliminates those that have true grit and hustle from being able to qualify for a franchise, because they can't even come up with the money to do this. I would not have qualified for, I would say 90%, 95% of franchises when I started our business. But I've built something that, is quite large, based off of things that weren't cash. So it's like, how do you find the next you or me if the fees are north of $50,000? That's a lot of cash for someone to come up with,
It's a lot. Yeah. And what our fees are, you nailed it, Nick, and you and I are talking the same language. Our fees are lower than that, even though everyone in the industry says, make it $49,000. Why not? Then you could pay a broker, right? That's what everyone says. What I found to be the best is ours is lower than that, but we also put a chunk of that straight to their marketing. That doesn't come to us fully, right? Because I'd rather them get a jump on stuff, and I'd rather them pay up because I have more skin in the game in terms of franchisees. So they pay, but a lot of it goes right back to them to help them out with marketing. And it's a win-win, right? Because you get the person with the grit in who's able to come up with the money, but a lot of it will help their business and they feel better about it too. Now, like you said, Nick, there's two sides of it. Not everyone has the grit. Even if you try to vet like, okay, I think this person's gonna be a fit. A lot of it's life circumstance. A lot of, things happen. You can't win every single time. But I have found, kind of going back to our initial conversations, if someone's not sold into it, if they themselves have made the decision, and at least in the process, I actually try to dissuade people. I'm like, it's really hard. Do you know what you're getting into? And you guide them along. And if the people who make it through those hoops and still want to, there's a higher chance that they're going to actually perform pretty well versus the people you're pitching and selling and doing that kind of stuff. I don't like that. Number one, because I'm not good at it. I'd rather just be super honest and saying, this is what it's going to take. And I'm sure we've lost a lot of sales because of that. And I'm completely okay with it.
My analogy is going to be weird, but I'm going to make it anyway. I tell this story about the person that I married, not all the people that I dated. And I think that when you're selling in franchisees or some of these brokers are like, I've helped 5,000 franchisees buy a business. Cool. tell me how many are still operating. Tell me how many have scaled. Tell me how many have successfully exited. That's the number I care about. And forever, as long as franchising is built on where are my leads, where are my deals, and this fake pressure to sell franchises within a calendar year at a magic number that's pulled out of the sky, like that's going to continue to have this negativity over here. And that's where if I'm a buyer and I'm listening to this, because again, like the business model is what it is, but listening to your philosophy, my odds of success go up, because I know that you're trying to set up a sustainable business that is built on culture and building in a community of franchise operators who have similar mindsets. It won't get perfect all the time, but you have a vision of how you're doing this. And obviously now it's executing. And the magic is find me the number of franchisors in a category similar to yours that got to 20 without the broker network in the last 4 years. I don't know that exists.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's a interesting industry. It took a while to learn how it actually works.
So give me the vision for the next 12 months, and let's close with, if there's a candidate watching this, what else do you want them to know about you or the business?
Yeah, I mean, so we're at 27 locations. We'll probably be around 30 by the end of the year. In terms of growth, slow and steady is kind of where my philosophy has always been at, letting people who hit 3 main categories like that I look for when someone inquires. Do they actually have the hustle to execute the model? What are their expectations? You'd be shocked how many people inquire and say, hey, I have about 3 hours a week. I'm going to replace my W-2 income, and then I'll quit my job and do this full time. It just, sometimes it doesn't work that way. And the last one is, would I get a beer with the person or a non-alcoholic beverage? Are they fit for the company culture? Those are all very, very key for me. So I think last year we added 12. We'll probably try to add about a similar amount for the next year and kind of continue at a decent clip that way. I'd rather do that and make sure everyone's very well supported. We have a couple of live conferences, another one coming up, just to get all the franchisees together. The quick blurb on who we are and why we're a little bit different. We're the only vacation rental cleaning franchise that exists. The better part is we're actually fully remote. I ran my business for 7 years in total while traveling the world across 50 countries. So a lot of the things are systemized. We use a lot of offshore talent to service a local location. So it's a local cleaning company, but it's entirely remote. So a lot of people who want that remote lifestyle, who value their lifestyle over business, who want to be able to travel, they could still have that by having, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. You have a local business with local barriers, but you could actually manage it completely remotely. Because of that, no office, no overhead, no equipment, no supplies, no vehicles with wraps. So a lot of other like older school franchises in this industry, they require a lot of that stuff because that's how the world was 20 years ago when they started. It's no longer that way. You and I know there's AI, there's tech, there's all these things coming up where you don't really need to have this insane overhead that gives you insane risk, especially in an economic downturn. So our costs are very low. It's essentially the website, marketing, software. That's kind of it. So a lot of people get in are focused on that. They want lifestyle freedom. They want a lifestyle business. They want to scale to a certain point where they could leave their job. They could help their wife quit their job. They could travel the world. And that's kind of what we offer. And I'll be honest, like some franchises and some people are focused on how do I make the max money possible? I'm fine working 80 hours a week. I'm fine taking a lot of risk and equipment and supplies as long as you get me to the max number. That's kind of not our philosophy. I think a lot of franchisees do really, really freaking well, but it's based off of their own terms. And that's kind of the person we're looking for.
I mean, look, if I'm someone that's watching this, and I think your biggest competitor is the broker network, because you're finding someone that's like, okay, here's how much money I have. What kind of businesses exist that can align with what my financial goals are and what I want from a lifestyle standpoint? And the broker network is like, come here, we'll match you up, and you'd be perfect for owning a donut business.
Yep.
But so you're competing against those, but that's where I think your model, building your personal brand, sharing your insights as a CEO, giving visibility into who you are as a person, that's going to be part of your magic. And clearly you're doing a lot of the right things. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing where your story continues to go.
I appreciate it, Nick. And question for you.
Yeah.
So far, it's been very great building off a personal brand and just putting out content and being very organic. I don't know if there's a point on the franchisor journey where that has to change, where you're like, hey, the main territories are sold out. You can no longer live by a personal brand only. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the beauty of a franchise brand, is then you can use your franchisees as the avatar. Like the reality is all of them have come from some sort of background to be able to make an investment like this, no matter what. Like, you're still investing in a business that you have little to no control over, that you believe in a system and a process, that you buy into the culture and the business model is sound. If I were you, and it's such a simple tweak. It's like, I'm looking at your site right now. Dan, owner of MaidThis Myrtle Beach. Well, give me Dan's last name. Give me Dan's LinkedIn. Like, give me more on Dan, because you're already lifting him up as the avatar. Go there. Like, it's almost like the review site said. It's like, Nick said this, but it's like, Nick Powell said this. Like, give more into it. When you give exposure back to your franchisees, eventually it won't be you. And it will be important at some point to make it a culture of entrepreneurial mindset, because at some point you will go to exit the business, whether life exits you or you exit it because you're ready to move on. In order to hand it on to the next company, at some point you're going to pull your lever down a little bit more and lift up the story of the franchisee. It will be a part of that journey that will have to happen, and you're already starting to do it. I would just double down on that bet a little bit more.
Got it. Okay, that's great feedback. I understand it.
Yeah. Well, look, this has been great. I'm glad that I got to see you again. I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and looking forward to seeing where the story goes.
Likewise, Nick. Hopefully catch you live soon. Thanks so much for having me.
I love it. For Neel, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.